This is an exclusive presentation of WOWO 1190 AM and 107.5 FM, Unholstered.
Welcome back to Unholstered. My name is Kayla Blakesley. I am one of your hosts here on Unholstered. I represent the local media side.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sophia Rosales-Catina. I'm a captain with the Fort Wayne Police Department, and I represent the law enforcement side.
Obviously, that's definitely not me. This show is all about sharing and telling the stories that don't often get told when it comes to law enforcement. If you have missed any previous episodes of Unholstered, you can download us anywhere you download a podcast. Just search for Unholstered. And Sophia, we ended up bringing today's guest in due to something that you kind of just mentioned in passing during an episode a couple of weeks ago about chaplains and how they're called out sometimes to certain scenes to meet with the families, pray with the families. And I thought, wait, what? You do what? This is another one of those facets that I had no idea that we were even lucky to have here in Fort Wayne.
We are truly blessed, no pun intended, with the Chaplain program that has really grown over the last few years. And I thought it was really important that we bring them on and kind of explain what they do and what they don't do. Because I think it's really good information to have so families know what resources are available to them in the event that we get so caught up in something we forget. Because that does happen occasionally. But we really try to make sure that this program is successful. And the guest I brought on has ensured its success over the last few years and has actually grown the program extensively. So we're really, really fortunate to have such a really strong faith base. Not only for our department, for this community as well. So I'll let him introduce himself.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm Chaplain Richard Hartman with the Fort Wayne Police Department. Actually, I'm the lead chaplain. I oversee, actually, believe it or not, there are now 13 of us totally within the department there with that. And we cover a variety of different faith-based denominations and things, both males, females, African Americans, and it's a really awesome opportunity for us. And I'll be honest, before getting involved with it, I really didn't know that there was a chaplain program within the police department either.
Yeah, she just brings these little things. I don't know if you've ever listened to this show, Richard,
Yes, I have.
But she just like drops these nuggets sometimes. Then we get off the show and I'm like, what? You never told me that. You buried the lead. You have this kind of program, these kind of people, this kind of technology. It's always mind-blowing to me. And that's actually one of the reasons why I just love this show, though, is I'm able to learn myself so much about it. So you mentioned this chaplain program in passing during a previous episode. Let me just ask this first. How long has it now been around?
Wow. Well, it was here when I got here, but it was really...
Which was a really long time ago.
Yes. I started policing when I was 2. So, yeah, it was a really long time ago. And we had a program in place, but it wasn't like the program we have now. Yeah. It's just grown exponentially, and we're very fortunate to have pastors and priests and, everyone that comes on board to this program. They're really energized. They're really happy to help. They're on an on-call basis, so if we have something go down within the city, they get paged out just like our officers do, and then they make the scenes if they need to. Our officers are really good at letting them know, like, hey, we don't need them right now, because sometimes families just don't want to talk to anyone at that moment. But sometimes they do, and we've had really, really good compliments about our chaplain program. When they go out, a lot of times they make suicide scenes, which are really, really hard for families.
Man, those would be the worst, yeah.
And sometimes they're with our officers when we make those death notifications as well. And it really helps our officers because it kind of shoves off on the chaplains what's really hard for us, because we have to go from investigative to heartfelt in a split second, and sometimes it's really hard to do, and sometimes those notifications can come across really like dry, and that's not what you want them to be. So then these lovely men and women step up and really help us kind of get through that situation.
Yeah, and actually, I'll just kind of real quickly, if I can.
This show's all about you, so you can do whatever you want.
just tell a little story here, which is that, as I said, before I got involved with it, I really didn't know that there was a chaplaincy program or what chaplains were. I mean, I knew what a pastor was, and I knew what a priest was, and things to that effect. But the chaplaincy program, I mean, it started out actually as a couple of my neighbors were police officers at the time, and we jokingly referred to it as fence time. They would call me up and say, hey, I need to talk to you about something. And we would go out and talk about it any number of topics and things to that effect. And then they went, you should become one of our chaplains. And I went, what's that? And they told me, and then I was like, no, I don't need to do that. Because it was like, I don't need another job to do, like I need another hole in my head kind of thing, And to be honest, then Chaplain Eric Riddle was the lead chaplain at the time, and Eric and I had been friends, but he had never talked about being a chaplain either until my next door neighbor said, you need to talk to Richard. Oh, yeah, I should do that. And the next thing I know, both of them are on top of me and going, you need to be doing this. And to make a long story short, in about a year, I then became a chaplain. And the thing about it is that the best part of it from my perspective is, besides giving something back into the community, is that I'm helping those officers and the community during one of the most difficult things that you're doing. Because every time we're called out, it's a crisis situation. It's not called out and go, gosh, I wonder if this is going to be a really bad scene or anything to that effect. Every single time we're called out, it's a bad scene.
I did not realize... This is surprising to me. I didn't realize that you're basically on call, like the officers are on call. I simply thought it was hey, Cindy, we'll take your number. We'll get you in contact with one of our chaplains. And then right. You would reach out maybe a day or two later. But I mean, you're talking 2 a.m. You get the phone call too.
Yep.
Wow. What is that?
They're not paid.
Yeah.
They're not paid.
No.
This is a voluntary basis for them, and I cannot tell you how grateful I am that they step up to do this, because it's really not only for our officers, because I'm telling you, we know, you've seen the headlines. I mean, you deal with the headlines, right? You know what happens in this city and how difficult it is, and to have kind of a faith-based platform we can go to. I mean, we have peer support, which is great, but sometimes we need a little something extra. Sometimes it's that faith-based things, and a majority of our officers are faith-based. We have a few that aren't, which is fine. But this runs the spectrum of all religions as well.
It does.
If they're not in our chaplaincy program, we have
contacts that we can make for anybody.
And honestly, I think almost everything's represented. I mean, we might have one or two religions that aren't,
right.
But like he said, we have contacts to them. If they need to be called in for one of our officers, they certainly can do that.
That's amazing. Again, I had no idea we had these resources. Talk to me, Richard. I mean, you joined the chaplain program, and again, you were kind of like, oh, I didn't even know it existed either, and I'm not even really sure what a chaplain is or does. Can you take us back to maybe that first call you did get? I mean, what was that like? Walk us through all that.
It was really interesting, because when they talked to me about doing the chaplaincy and things to that effect, I went to the congregation where I serve and said, this is what they're thinking about. I'm thinking about being a part of and things. And the congregation that I serve is very mission oriented and outreach and things to that effect. And the part that probably impressed me the most is that I went in kind of going, I don't know what I'm doing with this. And
was there any kind of like training or guidance or anything?
Well, that's where this comes in. So what happened is that I was then sworn in as a chaplain with then Chief York. And then 3 weeks later, I'm on a plane to Spokane, Washington for a week of training.
Okay.
And the part that I laughed the most about that is that was the first time I had ever flown out to the West Coast. I had never been to the West Coast before. And there's this thing called time differentiation and jet lag and things to that effect. I arrived Monday morning at 2 a.m., and then was supposed to start classes at 0900.
Oh, woof.
Yeah.
That's a long day.
Yeah. And so when I was done at 5 o'clock that night, that's now 8 o'clock our time. And I'm like, stick a fork in me, because I'm done.
Yeah, I'm not doing this.
No. Yep. And the next morning, my problem is the internal alarm clock kicked in. And so I'm up at like 2 a.m. out there, which is 5 o'clock here. And, there's a strange thing. People don't like you walking in downtown Spokane, Washington at 2 o'clock in the morning around hotels. But the thing about it is that I received a whole week of training, which covered 12 basic courses in the International Conference of Police Chaplains, which ironically now I'm the executive secretary of that very organization right now.
Wow.
And the part that's probably the most eye-opening for me is that I had only been there for like a couple of hours, and one of the other chaplains, which now happens to be the current president of the organization, which is based out of Chicago, says, "What's your standard operating or SOP on such and such and such?" I went, "SOP? What's a SOP?" And what's and things to that effect. Well, SOP stands for Standard Operating Policy, and the Standard Operating Policy for the Fort Wayne Police chaplains are that our first responsibility is to our officers and their administration and their families. The second one is into the community, and we have a community base because all of us are ordained in whatever faith tradition we're in, and then that's a connection that we have into the community. But with our officers, that's our first responsibility, is to help them to overcome all of those.
I guess I didn't realize even that element of it either. I'm thinking you're just available for these calls to homicides or suicides or what have you, but you are also available first and foremost for them, for these
that's
folks
correct.
Going to the suicides. I didn't realize. So how does that work? Do they call you up?
So that's correct.
Okay.
We do a lot of ride-alongs with our officers, that we're there with them when they're out and about. So we understand what their day-to-day activities are.
Can we get a chaplain program here at FedMed? I mean, my gosh.
I will say it's been remarkable, and I, as a recipient of a lot of prayer, shocking, I know, from our listeners, for me, but as a recipient of a lot of their prayers over the course of the last few years, just with everything I've been dealing with, it's just, it's sometimes a little overwhelming at the time, but it's just so comforting at the same time. And I think that's what brings our officers a little bit of peace, is that just, you have someone there on your side. Is not related to police, not related to the administration, not related to the city. It's just someone on your side who you can talk to at any time.
And we don't report to anybody else either, except for God.
Yeah. So it is
amazing.
Nice.
You can feel like you can really let it all out, let your guard down. You don't need to be Officer Sophia at that moment.
No, I can be Sophia the mom and the widow and the
right.
And
the
dealing
daughter
with
and
all
the
the stuff
sister.
that you deal with on a day-to-day basis. Because the part that I will give credit to this. One of the things that Chief Reed always says is that officers are not robots. They cannot turn.
I say it all the time here on the show that we, unfortunately, as civilians, we do view them as robots. We think they're not human. We think they're immune to all of
the
these
things.
Yes. And
sometimes we think that of ourselves as well.
But but it is kind of nice to have that mental health check-in that
and they do. They check in because they know I get texts from him all the time. How you doing? Because he knows I've had some struggles. Yeah. And he checks in, and it might not be like every week on the week, but it's occasionally, and that's appreciated. He stops by my office when he's in the building, and we'll say a little prayer together, and it's just really nice.
The thing that I always laugh about it is that you, as well as several other officers, will go, "How did you know that I was in a crisis situation when that text came?" And I always jokingly refer to it as, "Well, you forget who I work for."
I like that. I like that. Okay, so you go get all this training. Right. You're out on the West Coast.
That's right. And so then when I come back home, I'm able to put it back into operation there with that.
Now, wait a minute. So you go out there, and at first you're kind of like, stick a fork in me. This is not going to be for me. I'm exhausted. Right. It's jet lag. I don't know what a SOP is, right?
Right.
But you spend your week there and you come back. Are you feeling like, okay, God did call me to do this. I'm feeling good about it. I hear you, God. I'm going to make it happen. Or were you still kind of like womp womp?
I was just kind of like, I was overwhelmed. Okay. It was kind of like what happens if you take a funnel with a lot of liquid and trying to pour it in at the same time. It's going, but it's not going really smooth, and it's just kind of getting
sloshing all over the
That's
everywhere.
Right. And it really took me probably 6 to 8 months of trying to unbundle and untake all the stuff that was just shoved at me, and trying to assimilate all the stuff that's there. Because the reality of it is as chaplains, we cover a multitude of areas of everything like Sophia was just talking about, with death notifications, crisis situations, critical incident stress management, and we're thought of as being religious leaders because we are pastors and leaders in that aspect of it. But the other part of it with it is that we also cover things like counseling and helping them in their day-to-day lives and what's going on. My thing that I get called in a lot, especially since I talk a lot with the newly academy graduates and things, and teach at the academy too, is that if there's an in-the-line of duty shooting and things to that effect, they're like, why did God have me do this at this point? Or why does this have to keep constantly happening to me? Why am I doing this? And those why questions are things that, believe it or not, all the rest of us, civilians too, have a lot of those same questions along the way. And even as clergy, we have those same questions along the way.
You're human too.
Because we're humans too. That's correct. And so the reality of it is that it's kind of the way I look at it as a pastor. I was a pastor for over 20 years before I became a chaplain. And the reality of it is that when I became a chaplain, it really fulfilled a part of the ministry that was really lacking for me. I just didn't feel like I quite fit in with everybody there. And then I became a chaplain with the department, and then all of a sudden the light bulb came on, and it was like, now I kind of know what I'm supposed to be doing here finally. You graduate and all of a sudden it's like, well, I don't know what I'm doing, but now I do. Yeah. And the reality of it is that going around into the community and things, and then COVID hit too, I became really good at cruising parking lots for officers just to talk with them, because we couldn't really do a lot of other things along the way. And those communications, those touching base with people, that's the thing that for me as a chaplain is probably one of the most fulfilling parts of the job that I get. And it really boosts me too, is that because what we realize is that our officers and the struggles that they face, and our community too, we're all in this together. We're not separate. It's not enemies and pros and cons and things to that. Our officers live here. They work here. Their families are here. Our community is here. We're all part of this. And
Amen,
if we're
brother.
not working together, I'm going to really kind of tote Sophia here. When we had the struggles downtown following the Floyd situation there, I remember the one thing that you said was you were the PIO at the point in time, because you were on television and radio, and when we are a community, we talk with one another. We don't need to fight on these streets. We need to be together, and we listen to where you're at.
I actually remember that too. You handling that.
Yeah.
I thought really I don't know. You don't normally hear public information officers speak like that.
I get that a lot.
At least in my line of work on the media side, which is where I'm at. So I hear from PIOs a lot. I've also sat on the PIO side while I did some time in Ohio. So I get that, and I get the narrative that you're told to push and how to push it, when to push it. They don't speak like you do, Sophia.
Well, I always found it really important to just speak from the heart, and I think that's where most people listen. Is from the heart. And I'm a police officer. That's my job. But at the same time, I'm a community member. I'm a mother. I have children, and I'm scared for this community at times, and I'm scared for them at times. I'm scared for myself. And it's okay, and if I share that and I become relatable, then people will listen to me better. I think they'll listen, to the message, and the message is that we are a community. And we need to start acting like it. We need to come together. This isn't a time we're like a family, right? We're not always going to get along. But at the end, we're a family, and that's what this community is. To me, it's a family.
Well, and kind of to both of your points, I say this all the time on my show. If we spent as much time as we did on our similarities than we do on our differences, we would all be better people. We'd be a better world for it if we spent more time focusing on things that we have in common instead of focusing on the things that we don't have in common. It's actually one of the biggest frustrating problems to me of civilization that we do that. But
the things we don't have in common are what make us unique.
Correct.
And they make us us. And if we were all the same, how boring would that be?
And we learn from one another when we do that.
Yeah.
If we truly open ourselves up. That's the other thing about chaplaincy that I've found that's really enlightening for me. I have learned so much from my sisters and brothers in chaplaincy that are in other faith traditions and in other communities and things.
It's a lost art too, though.
Yeah, it is. Because one of the things that I think that's probably foremost that you have in your chaplaincies is the ability to listen. Because even here, you'll notice that, and this, my own family, when they listen to this, will be going, yeah, right, is that I spend a lot more time listening than I do really trying to talk in what's going on. So when people put me out in front, it's like, I'm not really.
Well, like I said, this show's all about you today.
And it's just making me a little bit on the nervous side, which my family is, especially my daughters, are going, yeah, right, Dad. But the other part of it with it is that, I always remember one of the things that my granny always taught me a long, long time ago. So here we go. Here's your object lesson for the day, ladies, which is, how many ears do you have?
Are you wanting us to answer?
Yes.
2.
2. Yeah. How many mouths do you have?
1.
There is a ratio there. You need to listen twice as much as you speak.
I like it. Although you are talking to a girl in news talk.
Well,
right?
yeah, I realize that. And you're also talking to a preacher, too, which,
right?
It's a little on the soapbox every once in a while there and along the way. But the reality of it, though, is that when we do that, when we listen twice as much as we talk, we really grow together as a community and as in partnership there with that. Because some of the nearest, dearest friends that I have now are on our police department. Like, I'll throw Sophia. Is Sophia there? I mean,
well, she walked into the studio calling you Chappie, and I was like, oh, okay, there we go. Let's get this party started. So, to your point, you know each other well.
That's right. And to me, the part of that is because one of the things that we do as chaplains, we spend time with our officers. It's not just an academic exercise, and it's not only at crisis scenes. It's other things there too. It's the day-to-day living that's there with that. I don't know how many times I arrive at the church and there's 1 or 2 officers in their cruisers in the driveway.
Wow.
Going, hey, I knew you'd be here sometime. I just need to talk to you about something. And
he's a safe place. And we don't have a lot of those, but he is. Yeah. So we're really grateful for him. And the program has, I'm tooting his horn now because the program has grown incrementally because of him.
How many chaplains did you say you have now? 12, 13?
We have 13.
13.
Yeah. When I started, there were 3.
Oh, wow. Okay.
There was myself and 2 others.
So then explain this to me then, again, just kind of walking me through, because I'm the average civilian. I don't know. I didn't know this program existed until Sophia brings it up in passing like it's no big deal, which obviously it is. I know you didn't mean it like that. But so, I mean, there's 13 of you. Y'all get the same page potentially for, let's say,
we do,
a homicide.
Yes. But what it is that I put together a rotation of our chaplains so that way we have a primary person and a backup.
Like a primary on-call person.
That's correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And so then what happens is like in the evening, most of us will turn our cell phones on vibrate or off. Which then kind of causes problems too, because when you do go on and you still got it off, then I have an issue there with that. But the other part of it is yes, all of us get called out when those go that way. The other part of it with it is that then it's kind of a wake up for the rest of us too. Okay, so and so is on call to this scene. Then what you'll also notice is that all of us that still have our phones around us are going, hey, praying for you and the community that's there with this. Please let me know if there's anything I can do.
That's beautiful.
And how much better can that be than that? Yeah. Like yesterday, we had a scene that was tragic in our community there with that. And one of our chaplains was there and was in that situation the whole time. And the thing that's really kind of getting to me, and it becomes very personal for me, is in that situation there was a person that died. That chaplain stayed with that body until they were taken to the morgue.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we do for the community too, and it's kind of the unwritten kind of quiet thing that nobody really talks about, but that's one of the things that we also try to do.
So is a chaplain always called to a crisis scene?
Most of the time. There's some times where they're not needed because we don't have like external family or something there or anyone around that needs maybe a hand to hold.
But in the event that is the case,
then
you're calling
right
them out.
Yeah.
That's correct.
And then someone can either say, yes, I want essentially want you to be here.
Yes.
No, I don't want you to be here on the flip side, right?
Yeah, a lot of the times I just ask, hey, would you like us to call one of our chaplains, or do you have a pastor or something
a
that you'd like
religious
me to
leader?
call?
Right.
Yeah, we normally ask that.
What do
especially
people
at
normally
government.
say, Sophia?
Normally they're saying yes to one or the other. They have someone or they want us to call. Very rarely do I get a no from someone who's actually, and sometimes when it is, it's just because I don't think they're really grasping the situation.
Yeah. But let's pretend they tell you no.
Yeah.
But then if they get in contact with the FWPD maybe the next day or again, still in conversations with their officers and they say, hey, you know what? I kind of would actually like to speak with one of your chaplains.
Yeah.
They can do that too.
Yeah, we can get
it all the time,
right
probably,
there.
right?
That's right. Yes,
If they don't, and either if they do or they don't, we have this book that they helped us make up about. We
call it a sympathy book.
Yeah,
is actually what it
book.
is.
And it's great.
So you give those to families?
Yes. To families, yep.
And what it does is it kind of puts together all of the information, because when you go through like a homicide, I'll just put it that way, there's a case number for it, then you have the coroner involved with it, then you're going to have a funeral home with it, and then you're going to, especially if it's dealing...
There's so much,
there's
and you can't even process what just happened.
Right. And not only that, but the other part of it with it is that you have like 15 to 20, sometimes even 30 people running in and out of that house and things to that effect at the time. And they're not trying to be rude or mean. There's a job that needs to be done, and they need to cross all the T's and dot all the I's in the process. Well, you get that much information thrown at you, and you have information overload there with that, because you're also dealing with grief yourself and what's going on. These sympathy books actually have kind of step-by-step cases of what you need to do following that, with things like, here's the coroner's number, here's the case number for this particular situation there. Then we have, it's not an exhaustive list, but it's a majority of funeral homes and their phone numbers and their addresses in there and email addresses. Then we also have things like what to do with like credit cards, Social Security.
Oh, wow. I wouldn't even have thought of that stuff.
And how to handle writing an obituary in there and things to that effect. And then at the back of it, it lists all the chaplains that we have in the Fort Wayne Police Department and things to that effect too. And it says, if we can be of any help, please call us and we will be happy to help you with that.
I know essentially we're talking death and tragedy and mental health, all things that aren't overly wonderful to talk about. Yeah. But I oddly have this like really nice sense of peace and calm knowing that we have this program, that it's, again, not just for officers, but it's for the entire community. Like you said, just staying there with that body until it's needs to go where it needs to go.
Right.
That gives me like this odd sense of peace, which is such a wonderful, beautiful thing. Because I'm assuming, Sophia, not all departments have this kind of program.
No, we're very fortunate. Not every department has this. Like I said, this program has grown so much under Chaplain Hartman, and I'm grateful for that because they do such good. But if there's someone outside this listening area in another department,
please call us too.
Yeah.
How can they do those? That's how I was going to kind of wrap it up, because of course we're already way out of time. But if someone wanted to get a hold of, learn more, seek information, how can they do that? They
can contact me at the Fort Wayne Police Department. You can, I think my email is sophia.rosales-scatina@cityoffortwayne.org, all spelled out, long email. Get a hold of me and I will get a hold of Chaplain Hartman for you. And if you want to set up a program like this on your department, he can aid you in doing that. He loves doing that. He loves helping. And then our pastors and everyone else can help as well in that regard. So we're just happy and grateful to spread this because it's really a wonderful program.
Yeah, I'm happy and grateful you came in. I'm happy and grateful you just kind of, oh, yeah, we have this program, blah, blah, blah. Again, I feel like he kind of buried the lead with this one. I think it's beautiful. I think it's special that we have
If I can share one other thing that's really important within our department, too. We also have in our department in the Fort Wayne PD, we also have victims assistance. And the interesting thing about victims assistance with chaplaincy is that a lot of times we are twins, in that their first responsibility is for the victims and the families and things to that effect. And notice I said ours is with the officers but see, the other part of it is they also care about our officers too. That's number 2 for them. We do care about the community and what's going on with their families, and that's our number 2. Gotcha, so if you'll notice, we dovetail really close and we work really close with those folks there with that.
I love that. Well, I'm appreciative that you do what you do. I'm appreciative that we have 12 other individuals alongside you doing what you do. What a remarkable thing that we have here in Fort Wayne. If you have missed any previous episodes of the other remarkable programs that we have at the Fort Wayne Police Department, definitely download the Unholstered podcast. You can download it anywhere you download a podcast. Your town, your team, your topics. This is Unholstered.
Thanks for listening to Unholstered. Be sure to subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you listen. And remember, you can listen every Saturday morning at 10:30 on WOWO 1190 and 107.5 FM.
Podcasts by Federated Media.